I rise to speak in support of the strengthening of hate crimes, and I speak as someone who is actually putting on my hat as a 12-year-old child who came to this country in 1984. I grew up here as a child of migrants, and during my childhood and my adolescence, I did from time to time encounter racism. There's no question about that. Sort of comes with the territory, if you like. And initially it was overt, and then as I grew older and became an adult and started seeking job opportunities, it was probably more covert. However, at no time did I have to encounter the kind of systemic and degrading hate that my Jewish community are now experiencing. I didn't wake up to street corners being defaced. I didn't wake up to schools turning into battlegrounds. I didn't wake up to communities, my entire communities, feeling like they were under threat. In fact, my experience was quite the opposite. There were intermittent episodes of racism, but because it was not systemic, I still felt and was able to build a sense of belonging in this country. It was not robbed from me in the way my Jewish community are currently experiencing. At no time did I feel like I was an alien in my own country. In fact, it was quite the contrary. I grew up, I thrived, thanks to the welcoming nature of my fellow Australians. A nation that changed with me, that became far more diverse as I grew. So I'm now standing here as a parliamentarian in a country that I don't recognise. I don't understand what is going on in this country that is making it acceptable for some people, and they are a minority, some people to walk around spreading hate against a community of fellow Australians. I just don't understand it. My Jewish community, for context, is large. I have around 6,500 Australians who have a Jewish heritage. And this community are highly active. They are contributors. Many of them have been here for many generations, multiple generations. They are overwhelmingly descendants of Holocaust survivors, overwhelmingly. In fact, the largest community of Jews who are descended from the Holocaust live in Melbourne. Right? This is baked into their DNA, and it is spread from one generation to another generation to another generation. They are acutely attuned to the vibrations and that can tear at our social fabric and can lead to the Shoah, the Holocaust. My community are active in every single domain right across the economy, whether it be from business to professionals to creatives. They are also, of course, philanthropists, some of the most generous people who have decided that they want to give back to our country. They have prospered through their hard work, their work ethic, and they have contributed back to every domain, whether it be the arts community, business, health, or indeed research, particularly in medical research. And so these people are contributors to our country, and yet they now feel like they are aliens in their own land, vilified and made to feel the other, isolated. And to be honest, they are frightened. They're frightened. Their livelihoods and their lives feel like they are under threat. I want to call out special thanks and tribute to Chabad, my Chabad in Malvern. I speak of people who contribute. These are people who contribute. They run an early childhood education centre and care which employs non-Jewish childcare workers who choose to work there because of the culture of the place. It is so welcoming and warm, and it is a proud institution that champions the Jewish faith and inculcates it in small children. And I want to also pay special thanks to Rabbi Veli from Chabad, who, of his own accord, with minimal training, set up a mental health group for men And as you know, I'm a chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Men's Health. And he did this because he found that there was a need, a need for men in the shadows, not just in the Jewish community, but outside that community, to speak about their lived experience, particularly with respect to addiction, a taboo within a taboo. And so he runs this on a regular basis, a small community group of men who come together to talk about addiction. And he links this program of care with the spiritual journey of what it is to be a Jew, because that is how he expresses his Jewish faith, as service unto others. And the group is attended by Jewish men as well as non-Jewish men. And that tells you something about the sense of giving that the Jewish community have towards the wider community. I also want to call out and pay tribute to, in my own community, King David School. This is a truly wonderful school. A school that it sits on the more progressive end of the Jewish spectrum, and it is a heterogeneous group of people like everyone else in Australia. You can't just dump us all into buckets. There is a mosaic within communities, within minorities. And this school really links antiquity to modernity. It bakes in every level, from the early learning center all the way to year 12, the importance of the Jewish faith, of Judaism, of linkages to Israel. And I had the honor of opening their one of the rooms in their early childhood education center, which is named after a particular type of food, wheat, actually, which is regarded as a staple in the Jewish faith, which has sustained the people of Israel. What King David does is, while embedding the Jewish faith and Jewish pride in their students, they very much promote a life, an outlook or a perspective that is outward-looking in their students. So the students are not sheltered and are not taught to become insular, but quite the opposite. In Year 9, they send these students out into the community to engage in the rest of the community. And right now, it's pretty hard for those kids. It's pretty hard for those kids. Do they feel safe entering the wider community, the mainstream community? As young Jewish kids, do they even wear their uniforms? Occasionally they don't. Do they wear their jewelry that declares that they are Jewish? They often conceal it. They often conceal it. Because right now things are not safe. This is a country I do not recognize. Because of this Jewish community that I got to know and I learned so much from, I went to Israel twice. I'm the only parliamentarian who visited Israel twice last year. First visit was in July, and it was an invitation by the Speaker, Parliament to Knesset visit, and it was extraordinary. And I went in a multi-partisan group, other parliamentarian members, and we had the honour of visiting many, many sites in Israel, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. We went to Beersheba, where the Anzacs fought. We also had the opportunity to visit the Palestinian Authority and engage with the Palestinian then leadership in Ramallah. And it was an eye-opener. At the time, Israel was gripped by protests over the proposed changes to the judicial system. And it was really hot. And in the heat, 40-degree days, you could see thousands of people, sometimes young families with children strapped to their backs, holding the Israeli flag and marching. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people would do that. And you could not miss these protests. But it also showed me how passionate Israelis are about their country, how passionate they are about their system of government and their democracy. And then, of course, my second visit was in December in the aftermath of October 7. And I was offered to go on this trip. It was sponsored by AJAC and Josh Burns attended, my colleague, member for McNamara, and other members from the coalition. And I didn't hesitate when given the opportunity. Why? Because I wanted to see for myself what had happened. And I had, until then, read about it in the media, but I wanted to remove that filter of the media and those biases. And there always are biases when you read or consume media. And I wanted to see it for myself, and I wanted to go in support and show my support in a very tangible way to my Jewish community. And there are things I saw there which I cannot unsee. There are smells that I smelt which I cannot forget. I remember there was a moment where I stood at a site in Sderot, a town that had its police station demolished. And it took a bulldozer, it took gunships dropping bombs. It took about 17 hours to demolish this police station, with terrorists inside and policemen inside and service personnel inside, because the walls were fortified. And I stood on that site, which was basically leveled with a few bits of concrete and other debris, and gave a TV interview, and I could smell death rising up from the earth. I'm a doctor, I've smelled death before, and it's not something I will ever forget. What I didn't expect, though, was to see the level of anti-Semitism unleashed against the Jewish community, against Jewish Australians here when I returned. And my community warned me, and from the very beginning, that this would escalate. That if you give anti-Semitism a foothold, give it an inch, it will accelerate. And that is exactly what has happened. That is exactly what has played out, because the Jews are the canaries in the coal mine. And we have absolutely seen that happen in 2025, where this has become a daily occurrence in this country. Completely unacceptable. But I knew this because I'd also had the opportunity in July of last year to visit Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial. And for those of you who cannot get there in person, I suggest you educate yourselves by jumping online and having a look at the Yad Vashem website, or visiting one of your local Holocaust museums in your major cities. And there will be soon built a national museum here in Canberra with funding that we have provided. But it shows how anti-Semitism can, once it takes hold, can lead to the worst possible outcome: mass murder on a scale that humanity has never seen. Systematized, calculating, and highly effective. And it happened because of dehumanization of the Jews. It happened because of centralization of power. It happened because of propaganda. It happened because of demagoguery. My fellow Australians, those elements are universal. They can happen again and again and again. So to think that this will never happen again is a delusion. It can absolutely happen again if the circumstances are right and if those ingredients are allowed to take a foothold and thrive. But it starts with dehumanizing the other. In some cases, it's racism against people like me, or people who look like me, or our First Nations Australians. In other cases, it is anti-Semitism. And it starts with microaggressions. It starts with hate. It starts with the language that makes the other feel like they don't belong there, that robs them of their identity. And hence I support this bill, on top, which builds upon all the other measures this Albanese government has delivered, from outlawing the Nazi salute to the trade of Nazi symbols to anti-doxing laws, which unfortunately again happened in the aftermath of Jewish creatives being doxed, but will also benefit others, particularly women, because women are the ones who get doxed. And that brings me to my final point, that although these laws are occurring in the context of unacceptable and virulent and rising anti-Semitism in this country, that these laws will actually benefit everyone in this country. And that, if there is a silver lining to this horror, is the gift of this moment. I thank the House.